Bizarre Brain Comics. Okay. Hello, my comic book friends. And welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host. And this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. This time, I want to take a look at this one. This is Shaloman, the sequel. Now, I've covered Shaloman once before. That was from an issue that was about 30 years old. So it goes back about 30 years. And this one is just from 2011. And there's some differences in it, minor. And we'll talk a little bit about it. So let's go take a look. Okay, here is Shaloman, the sequel. And as I said, there's a few little changes. Now, the first time, as I said, the first one that I covered, which was a very, very early issue of Shaloman, it was from about 30 years ago. And this is the way he looked then. Actually, he's supposed to have short sleeve shirts, short sleeves on. I kind of like him better that way. Anyway, this is Shaloman, and then he had a costume change. See, what you see over here, which matches this one, and he, along with the costume change, there's some minor change with his symbol, where it is the Hebrew letter Shin as his symbol, and here is his stylized version of that. Okay, and for those who may not be aware, because this is unusual in that it is Shaloman is kind of like it's not mainstream, self-published for decades, self-published comic book, with the target audience being Jewish children. The Shaloman is basically a modern interpretation of the Golem legend, and it was created, written, drawn, and published by Al Weisner. And Al Weisner, I've talked more detail about him before, but I'll briefly give you a little bit of the background. He was a hairdresser. He's lives out of Pennsylvania, and after he retired in the mid '80s, he wanted to do these Jewish comics. He lamented the fact that though so many of the major historic figures who created comics were Jewish, there were virtually no Jewish characters in mainstream comics. And that includes people such as Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, Will Eisner, Harvey Kurtzman, Stanley and Jack Kirby, whose real names were Stanley Lieber and Jacob Kurtzberg. And so many others were of Jewish background, but they had so few Jewish characters. So he created this character who is specifically Jewish. he is considered the superhero of Israel, etc. Although he works around the world and not just for Jewish people. And he is, as I said, he is basically an update of the Golem. He resides on the fictitious Mount Israel in the form of Shin rock, which is this rock sculpted into the form of the Hebrew letter Shin. And when someone says Oy vey, that word is mystically transmitted to Mount Israel, and Shinrock transforms into Shaloman, who then follows that mystic trail of the Oy vey back to its origin to see who is in trouble and sees what he can do about it. So that is briefly our background. Let's take another brief look inside the pages of Shaloman, the sequel. And here we go. And this is, I forgot to mention that as well as doing these Shaloman comics, which he's done for decades, Al Weisner was also a caricaturist. He would do caricatures at parties and events and the like. And he would often have a lot of inside jokes in his stories, characters that were based on real people with slight name changes, or things in the wording, naming of things or such that had a joke. Like, well, I'll mention it. Like here, this is the title is 11/9. Taken from 9/11, except this is a terrorist event on the date 11/9 in 2011, and that's when President Obama was in office, and here he features that president, but here he's President Montana, and you can clearly recognize him here in this caricature of him here. So here we go. And here on the inside cover, you can see this list of all these previous Shaloman books. At this point, he wasn't even numbering them; he was just going by the title of the story. And we have well, this takes place in 2009, even though I said 2011, I meant 2009. Yeah, and this takes place in 2009. We're talking about the stuff going on at the Statue of Liberty. Here you can see he has some pretty respectable background work. His art is very, very amateurish and looks very fan-ish, and that's fine. But he has either photo reference or tracing of some of the major backgrounds that are used, and he does a respectable job at that stuff. And this is the event, and then they give us some background. These over the past 2 days, these terrorists have taken some school children hostage who are on a tour of the Statue of Liberty. There's a bomb in there, and they're demanding millions of dollars in gold to be delivered by the president. Okay, and then they flash back to how Shaloman got involved. The word Oy vey is mystically carried to Mount Israel, where Shinrock is transformed into Shaloman, and he follows it back. But the person who said Oy vey is Dr. Trafe, and there's a joke in the name Trafe. It means something. I don't know what it is. And Dr. Trafe has called for. He is his one of his nemesis, his arch nemesis, Dr. Trafe. But he's called Shaloman to help because his son was on that school tour that was taken prisoner, and his life is being threatened. So Dr. Trafe says, please help. So he goes. Then we to go check it out. Meanwhile, we're into a bunch of stuff here with in the Oval Office with President Montana, and it gets kind of long. Is that basically they get someone who looks and sounds an impersonator, someone to volunteer to take the president's place, so that the president doesn't go into directly into the line of fire as they're wanting. And then we go to Shaloman as he goes to the Statue of Liberty, and here you get to see something that he did not previously have. Is he wears a yarmulke, this skull cap that some Jewish people wear. Okay, and here's commendable art showing the New York skyline, the Statue of Liberty, and then we have the cutaway here of the Statue of Liberty. So, and all the backgrounds are pretty reasonable and tight. Here we get to see, this is Dr. Trafe's son, is one of the hostages we see here, and he's thinking his dad's going to get something. He goes to check it out. The terrorists start shooting at him as he does a flyby, and he gets involved. He finds out who some of the terrorists are. They get the wife of one of the head terrorists, plus their two small twin children, and they go with the fake president on the boat to meet these terrorists. There's more involved here. Again, a very, very commendable view of Liberty Island, and we have just more intermittent stuff. They go to the island, and here we have a flashback to how the whole thing was conceived in the first place, but won't go back into that. Here, then the terrorists are meeting the fake president and the wife and children of one of the terrorists, and he says, "No, it doesn't matter." The lead guy says, "No, that doesn't matter. You get back where you belong. You should not be here." But the father of these children and the husband, he says thinks in his own head he's not willing to risk his own. He'll risk his life, but he's not willing to risk the lives of his wife and children. He reaches over and snaps the wire on the detonator so that the bomb cannot be set off. He turns on his partner, blows him away, and he himself is shot by one of the Coast Guard officers, and that's when Shaloman jumps in, captures the terrorists in the statue. Some gunfire going on while he's cleaning up. The SEAL team gets onto the island. Then Shaloman gets the explosives and whisks them off into space, where they explode harmlessly, and everyone is free, and no one can know that it was an impersonator taking the place of the president. The lady and her children are fine and returned home, and Shaloman returns to his place as Shin Rock on Mount Israel to await the time until someone else says "Oy vey!" And then on the back cover is a little thing for little ad for the online Jewish store for all things Judaica, and that is a fun little look at Shaloman. I not being Jewish, I don't care, but I really enjoy it. Whenever I can, I get some Shaloman. I have half a dozen issues, and I wanted to cover them again. It's it's just some fun stuff, and a look away from regular mainstream comics. So thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe. Do leave comments. What do you think of Shaloman? Is this your first introduction to this character? And would you do you think it would be worth reading? I do. Just for if you can get a copy for just a few bucks, it's worth reading and experiencing. And it is better written than a lot of the self-published so-called outlaw or power comics out there. And they're all still fun stuff to read. But overall, it's better written, but the artwork is iffy in some parts, pretty good in some others. So that's all. Let me know what you think, and remember, comics are art.